of Islamophobia in Asia. In the panel we are presented today, we analyze the particular situation in China. Today's side event is about the rise of Islamophobia in Asia. This alarming phenomenon manifests itself in the adoption of discriminatory laws, the proliferation of hate speech, collective violence, and the violation of human rights against Muslim communities. In India, the situation is especially serious. The organization represents a raised concern at the Human Rights Council regarding Indian citizen announcement act, passed in 2019. This law excludes Muslim from upholding citizens and as persecuted asylum seekers potentially living in Indian minority status. The situation in China is also deeply troubling. Our esteemed panel expert will provide information on the discrimination exerted by state arbitrary detentions and cultural erasure experienced by Uyghur and other Muslim minorities community in Xinjiang and through China. Faced with human rights abuses, it's crucial to go beyond observation and taking action. It is by upholding justice, embracing tolerance, and honoring the fundamental values of human dignity that we can combat the harmful effect of Islamophobia and foster peaceful unity as well. And now, without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to the distinguished expert. And I will start by some video message. So I will give my task of moderator and going to technical issue for the videos. So the first speaker will be Dr. Eric Patterson, President and CEO victim of Communist Memorial Foundation videos.
Hello, my name is Eric Patterson. I serve as President and CEO of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation in Washington, D.C. Thank you for this chance to address the issue of religious intolerance and persecution. In just a few weeks, the Muslim world will celebrate Eid al-Adha, but will China's Muslims be able to celebrate? And the answer, of course, is that for many of them, no. You see, the regime in Beijing has an ideology that sees religious identity and religious faith as a challenge to its communist ideology and to allegiance to the elite leadership of the communist regime. Hence, Christianity, Falun Gong, Tibetan Buddhists, and China's many Muslims are seen as a threat. And we've seen horrific violence directed at the Muslim communities, particularly ethno-religious Uyghurs, Kyrgyz, and Kazakhs. It's well documented that as many as 1 million Uyghurs have been detained and forced into essentially today's equivalent of concentration camps in Western China. And so at this time, it's perfectly appropriate for us to remember that communism as an idea and in practice has a terrible track record of violating the fundamental human dignity of Muslims. It goes all the way back to the earliest years of the Soviet Union and the radical persecution, the murders, and the deportation of Tatars in Central Asia. And it continued over the decades, most horrifically, with the invasion of Afghanistan that resulted in the destruction of mosques and cemeteries, the killing of hundreds of thousands of people, and the displacement of millions of Afghan Muslims. And of course, it continues today with the Uyghur genocide. And so at this time, let us reflect that we have much work to do to continue to counter the evil ideology of communism and its attacks on our Muslim friends and neighbors. Thank you very much.
And now I will give the floor to Dr. Ayush Turkish-Tas, member of the Parliament from National Assembly of Turkish.
Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, I want to express my deep honor at being a panelist at the 56th session of the Human Rights Council side event, countering Islamophobia in Asia from awareness to action. I extend my heartfelt thanks to the organizing team and all participants gathered here today. You are all welcome. Imagine waking up every day in fear of discrimination or persecution simply because of your beliefs. For millions of Muslims across Asia, particularly in the Uyghur region, this fear is a harsh reality. Today, we are here to shine a light on this urgent issue that not only threatens the foundation of our societies, but also challenges our commitment to justice and equality. It's crucial to recognize that the trend of Islamophobia has escalated globally since the aftermath of 9/11. However, we must also acknowledge the historical context. The Uyghurs have not drawn a breath of freedom since 1949, and China opportunistically framed an entire nation of people as terrorists. This historical fact undermines China's portrayal of Uyghurs as merely a Muslim minority within China's territory, rather than an oppressed indigenous group under threat of extermination. In a world characterized by heightened security measures, the Uyghurs' Muslim identity has become a target of government campaigns framed as anti-terrorism efforts. These policies have led to increased surveillance, socio-political oppression, extrajudicial detentions, and even reports of torture and theft, all justified under the guise of the war on terror and state security. UN, in its own reports, warned that atrocities against the Uyghurs may constitute crimes against humanity. In China, Islamophobia has been institutionalized, legalized, and widely accepted. In today's world, where human rights are protected and guaranteed by international laws, it is deeply concerning that Uyghurs continue to face severe restrictions. Their religious freedoms are systematically violated by the Chinese government. Newborns are prohibited from being given Muslim names like Muhammad. Travel for pilgrimage is grounds for being sent to internment camps, and fasting or praying during Ramadan is monitored by Han Chinese so-called relatives living in their homes. Additionally, Muslims are coerced into selling and consuming pork and alcohol, that products prohibited by Islam in their businesses, while men are forbidden from growing birds and women from wearing veils. Satellite imagery reveals that significant Islamic sites and mosques have been demolished or damaged due to the government's deliberate policies to eradicate Islam from the Uyghur homeland. For Turks, Uyghurs are not just the people with whom we share a religion. We also share a common heritage and bloodline. We are brothers, we are sisters. Therefore, we will continue to steadfastly support the Uyghur cause through every means available to us. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, I want to express my deep honor at being a panel.
Thank you. And now I will give the floor by video to Dr. Nazila Ghania, the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion of Belief.
I appreciate having been invited to address this side event on countering Islamophobia in Asia from awareness to action. I very much regret not being able to join you in person, but I'm grateful to the organizers for inviting me to address you via this short video message. The scourge of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hatred is regrettably an issue which my mandate has regular occasion to address in thematic reports, in country visits, and in direct communications to states about alleged human rights violations. In a prominent report in March 2021, My predecessor, Professor Ahmad Shahid, outlined that suspicion, discrimination, and outright hatred towards Muslims had, in certain instances, arisen to epidemic proportions. As we all know, the situation globally presents us with significant challenges. In December 2023, I was joined by the Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide and the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations in decrying the alarming rise in Islamophobia and other hatreds such as anti-Semitism around the world. Islamophobia has its own particular history and manifestations on the Asian continent. Several of these become visible if we look at this mandate's recent communications to states on this matter. In December 2022, I joined several other mandate holders in reiterating our grave concern to the Chinese authorities regarding the situation in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, particularly encouraging review and reconsideration of the counter-terrorism legislative framework applicable to the region. We reiterated our concern at numerous human rights violations affecting the predominantly Muslim Uyghur population under this current situation, including prohibitions on peaceful manifestations of religion and widespread discriminatory surveillance, arbitrary detention, forced labor, enforced disappearances, and gender violence. The Chinese authorities have received 9 communications in relation to these issues since 2017, though in their responses, there is a continued defense of policies as being in line with international human rights obligations. Unfortunately, safety abroad in accordance with international law is not guaranteed in practice for Uyghurs who seek it. In February this year, along with several mandate holders, we raised our concern with the Thai authorities about the reportedly life-threatening conditions of indefinite detention being experienced by over 40 Uyghur refugees who had attempted to escape China in 2014. Similarly, we addressed the Bangladeshi government with concerns regarding the repatriation of predominantly Muslim Rohingya Muslim refugees to Myanmar in light of the unconstructive conditions for their safe return. Muslim minority populations indeed are often disproportionately disadvantaged. We have also raised our concerns with the Sri Lankan authorities concerning the Anti-Terrorism Act once it was proposed in March 2023, as well as the particularly concerning counter-terrorist framework in India's Jammu and Kashmir region, given the long-standing allegations of arbitrary detentions, killings, disappearances, and torture of Muslim and other minorities in the region. Regarding India, my mandate has also raised serious allegations, including the impact of local anti-conversion laws, forced evictions and housing demolitions affecting Muslim communities, and the prohibition of hijab in educational institutions, among others. In a recent press release marking the International Day to Combat Islamophobia on 15th of March 2024, I highlighted the prevalence of physical attacks and stoking of tensions for political gain in the run-up to elections, and in this relation, the recent tensions surrounding the Ram Mandir temple, formerly the site of the 16th century Babri Masjid in Ayodhya, were noted as cases in point. Such is the reach of anti-Muslim hatred that it grows even where neither a history nor threat of conflict, separatism, or terrorism is present. Xenophobia towards Muslim minorities can be ignited by the simple desire to establish a place of worship to peacefully pray. I recently raised the case of Muslims in Daegu City, South Korea, who were confronted by deeply offensive protests obstructing the construction of a new mosque. The South Korean government responded positively to the communication and was taking measures, as reported in that response, to ensure the obstruction ended and an amicable resolution could be found. There is no shortage of normative guidance as to the obligations of states to deal with such questions at the legal, political, or societal levels. However, persistent dialogue and advocacy at all levels is necessary in order to make tangible progress and for the rights of non-discrimination, equality, and freedom of religious belief to be practically and effectively enjoyed by Muslims as well as other religious or belief minorities in Asia and beyond. Initiatives such as this side event are necessary and helpful steps, and I hope that you will leave with valuable insights and renewed energy. Let me conclude by reaffirming my commitment towards combating religious intolerance, stigmatization, discrimination, incitement to violence and violence against Muslims and all others targeted on the ground of their religion or belief. I stand ready to support states and all other actors devoted to eradicating religious or belief intolerance and to assist in them exploiting the full potential of international human rights instruments, plans of action, and initiatives that are at our disposal. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing more about your deliberations in this side event. Thank you.
After the video's message, I will move the floor to our panelist in person, and I will start with Rushan Abbas, founder and executive director of Campaign of Uyghurs, which we organized this side event, we co-organized this side event together, and I'm really proud to answer this part today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, esteemed guests. Salam alaikum. It's a privilege to join you today to shed light on the atrocities faced by Uyghurs and the Islamophobic narrative the CCP uses to justify religious intolerance and state-sponsored genocide by people. Today, July 5th, we commemorated the 15 years since the tragic Urumqi massacre. On this day, Chinese regime opened fire on Uyghur protesters with the brutal force witnessed in Tiananmen Square 35 years ago. We commemorate this day annually, calling for redress, as some of you may have seen in front of the UN this morning. In 1949, the CCP claimed our land and started to oppress our people. Rich in resources and strategically important, my people face the CCP's genocidal policies aimed at eradicating Uyghur identity, disguised as counter-terrorism measures. On December 9, 2021, the Uyghur Tribunal, led by the World Uyghur Congress, declared Beijing's actions in my homeland a genocide, a designation supported by 12 governments and parliaments worldwide. From cradle to grave, it is an abomination to be an Uyghur Muslim. Women face forced abortions, forced sterilizations, acts recognized as crimes, the genocidal crimes by the United Nations. They are also subject to forced marriages to Han Chinese, with refusals leading to detention and being labeled as radicalized Islamic extremists. Children are taken from their parents and indoctrinated in state-run orphanages. Religious practices are banned. Millions of copies of Holy Quran are burned. Over 8,000 mosques demolished, and thousands more repurposed into bars, pigsties, or displaying Communist Party slogans inside. I am speaking to you today at the cost of my own sister's freedom. In September 2018, I spoke publicly about the heavy crackdown and the mass detention of my people. Only a few days later, my sister Gulshan Abbas was taken hostage by the CCP as an act of their transnational oppression. 2 years later, I found that she has been given a lengthy probationary sentence under the charges labeled terrorist activities. It's utterly offensive to associate her beautiful name and peaceful personality in that word. My sister was a non-political person, a retired physician, and a loving grandma. Hatred, fear, and prejudice against Uyghur Muslims are not new, but the world has never witnessed such a state-sponsored, large-scale, and technologically advanced Islamophobic acts targeting of normal religious practices. The CCP has pioneered new methods of persecution using technology to oppress and control, all the while they whitewash their crimes with propaganda and the silence in UN member states through trade threats and manipulations. We must hold the Chinese government accountable and ensure reparation for the Uyghurs who have faced unimaginable suffering. If we fail to demand justice now, our future generations will face the consequences of an illiberal world. UN member states must act decisively against this atrocity. Islamophobia cannot be legitimized under euphemisms such as national security. Uyghurs must be free and worship without being labeled extremists. All unjustly detained must be free. Children reunite with their families, and the state-sponsored slavery abolished. Uyghurs must live free with dignity. The CCP's so-called historic achievements in this UPR yesterday include genocide and crimes against humanity in reality. The CCP's dismissal of recommendations regarding Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and the other Muslims in my homeland as false information reflects from the brutal reality of my people face daily. Genocide is not China's internal business. The PRC must implement the UN High Commissioner's recommendations in the Uyghur region. The international community must not be swayed by the CCP's narrative. We must continue to investigate, speak out against the genocide, and demand meaningful action to protect the rights and the liberty of the Uyghurs. The Uyghur genocide is not one of the most unnatural, egregious things. Is one of the most unnatural, egregious stains on humanity. If this goes unaddressed, tomorrow we will see other villages die with the same methods of oppression that Uyghurs face today. I wanted to end my remarks with a quote by Nobel Peace Prize nominee and international human rights lawyer David Mathis. Quote, "Unless today's victims are defended, we run the risk of becoming tomorrow's victims." Unquote. Thank you.
Thank you for your remark. So now I will give the floor to the other co-organizer of this side event. Is Apil Idris, is a founder and executive director of Center for Uyghur Studies. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, distinguished guests. When Islamophobia mentioned, China really comes to people's mind. The reason is that China has been successful in covering its Islamophobic policies and the religious persecution of Muslims, Christians, and other beliefs over the decade. That's why we thought we need to shed a light in this issue and published our report, Islamophobia in China, an attitude of Muslim countries. It's available in Arabic, English, Turkish, Russian, and Malay, and today we have special edition and some other reports this back you can take. The report examines CCP's systematic, historic Islamophobic policies since 1949, aimed at synthesizing Islam and the Muslims. In details, China's war on Islam in my homeland over the past 7 decades including recent years, and exposed Chinese disinformation campaign in propaganda to silence global Muslim option. The report concluded highlighting the OIC's failure to address the Uyghur genocide and the attitudes of the Muslim majority countries toward the issue. I am very happy to see today delegation from Morocco, Lebanon, from the Muslim countries. Islamophobia in China has deep historical and cultural roots. Since its founding 1949, the PRC has upheld atheism as state ideology, systematically discriminating against all religions. As a result, state-sponsored Islamophobia is widespread. The Chinese regime's genocidal policy in Uyghur homeland are the epitome of the state-sanctioned Islamophobia. All Islamic practices have been criminalized, resulting in millions of Uyghur Muslims and Kazakhs detained in concentration camps under the pretense of eradication. Since 2014, thousands of mosques have been demolished, closed, or repurposed. The Chinese government has burned Quran and destroyed religious materials. In 2017, the government document labeled Islam a mental illness to be eradicated under Sinicization. Uyghur customs are forced to conform Chinese norms, and Islamic elements are removed from their architecture. Uyghurs are detained in the right. Uyghurs are denied the right to practice their religions under Chinese Islamophobia policy. Moreover, a Human Rights Watch report in January this year has confirmed once again that CCP intends to continue its religious persecution of Uyghurs. According to the report, the Chinese government revised regulation, tightening controls over the religious practice of Uyghur Muslims. We are also seeing Chinese officials repeating and emphasizing the importance of Sinicizing of Islam in my homeland. In March this year, Martin Reed, the top CCP officials in my homeland, said that Sinicization of Islam is inevitable. Also, we can see the intensity of China's crackdown on the religious practice of Uyghur Muslims in Hajj. Since 2017, the number of Uyghur pilgrims has declined dramatically. And this year, there was no Uyghur, no Kazakh Muslim allowed to practice Hajj. Furthermore, celebration of Eid al-Adha also been largely reduced to mere show up. This year, we again saw no sign of celebration of Eid al-Adha by Uyghurs and the Kazakh Muslims. As I mentioned earlier, today marks the anniversary of the July 5th Urumqi massacre, a stark reminder of unacknowledgeable injustice, paving the way for the future atrocities. And the genocide begins not with the concentration camps, but with the demonization of a population and the unchecked violence against an ethnic group. To sum up, my people think the Islamophobia is confined to the West, and China never comes to their mind when Islamophobia is discussed. However, based on the above mentioned policies and the facts and details, the Chinese authorities, we can say that China is most Islamophobic country in the world. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. So, sorry, you have a slide coming. Okay, so now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Islamophobia, Secretary General, Royal Sea Youth in Indonesia. So, the precious. Just tell us what you
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Adnan Tori, as Secretary General of OIC Indonesia. This organization is an umbrella organization for the Muslim-based youth in Indonesia and advocate for youth involvement, development, and issue pertaining in the Muslim world and Indonesia. In this forum, I would like to speak regarding Indonesian view as a youth organization or the youth movement in regard to combating Islamophobia in Asia, specifically about our experience when advocating for Uyghur Muslim in Indonesia. Indonesian policy on the issue of the Islamophobia against the Uyghur ethnic group. As predominantly Muslim country, Indonesia has responsibility to respond to the Uyghur crisis and to uphold the values of solidarity and brotherhood among Muslims. We must speak out against the human rights violation being committed against the Uyghur and call for peaceful resolution to the conflict. Where we must also be careful not to escalate the conflict further and respect the authority of China. We have also the next slide. Next. Yes, next. We have also the Bandung Principle. The Bandung Principle, which emerged from the 1955 Asia-Africa Conference, would be useful framework for dealing with Uyghur crisis, while respecting China's sovereignty. As a Muslim majority country, Indonesia is responsible for responding to the Uyghur crisis and upholding the value of solidarity and brotherhood. This principle includes mutual respect for sovereignty, respect of human rights, and the non-interference in the internal affairs of the other countries. Originally, to promote cooperation among developing countries and reject colonialism. This principle remains relevant to issues such as the Uyghur crisis. Next slide. We also have experience of OIC Indonesia advocate the Uyghur issue to the public. The first demonstration to protest on Muslim Uyghur in front of the Embassy of China in Jakarta. Second, next slide. The second is the campaign of Uyghur. OIC Indonesia consistently doing campaign, education and socialization toward the public, educational institution, university and Islamic organization regarding the Uyghur issue. Next. We also advocate Muslim Uyghur in Indonesia to Indonesian government to build awareness in addressing the Uyghur issue. Next. Challenge of OIC Indonesia in advocating for the Uyghur issue in combating Islamophobia. Okay, next. I will show you the photo and video. We got the discrimination again of OIC Indonesia when advocating Uyghur issue to the community. Okay, click the right video. There's the video. Click.
Acara diskusi atau deklarasi launching buku yang dikarang oleh saudara aktivis atas misi propaganda Uyghur Indonesia ini saudara-saudara sekalian. Kita
they didn't know what happened in the reality for the Uyghurs, but this is by order by person to protest us when we advocate, when we educate to the public. Okay, next. The type of discrimination experience, we got some pressure to not socialization and education about the Uyghur issue, protest carried out by demonstrators, pressure on resource person not to be present in discussing the Uyghur issue. Pressure on Islamic education, educational institution and organization not to accept us when we advocacy facing. There is the media also, there is the media opinion narrative that is not good in addressing Uyghur issue. They are introduced the district webinar activity and the last supervision from the security force when we conducting a seminar on the Uyghur issue. Okay, next. Next. Yeah. Yes. Yes, this is the headline method of YC Malaysia is advocating for the Uyghur issue in combating Islamophobia. The headline method involves the 7 main elements that work, collaborate, and coordinate from the government, parliament, entrepreneur, academician, media, civil society, and last Uyghur community. The figure show the interrelationship between all these elements, emphasizing the importance of cooperation and coordination between them to effectively address the Uyghur issue and fight combating Islamophobia. What if the head-to-head method doesn't work effectively? Some of the potential consequences that could occur are, of course, lack of coordination, lack of police support, lack of resource, lack of public awareness, insufficient research and data, lack of international pressure. Ultimately, the failure of this method may lead to less effective advocacy effort, which in turn worsen the situation faced by the Uyghur community and the hinder effort combating Islamophobia. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will now give the floor to our last speaker of today's event, Mr. Mr. Khairul Anwar Ismail, Senior Advocate and Solicitor, High Court of Malaysia, Deputy President, Muslim Youth Movement of Malaysia. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to be here today to address such an important issue on countering Islamophobia in Asia from awareness to action. I'm coming from Malaysia, a very small country in Asia, more particularly in Southeast Asia. But yet, the issue on Islamophobia in Asia is also impacted our country. This is very unique. The Muslim in our country is just 60% out of the population. Another 40% are those from Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and from other religions. We want to create a good environment for humanity to ensure that everyone can live with each other in harmony. Look at what happened in Arakan region in Myanmar. Rohingya Muslims face severe persecution. The persecution leading a mass exodus to neighboring countries, including Malaysia. And now, we are hosting more than 200,000 Rohingyas people in our country. Look at what happened in India. The rise of anti-Muslim sentiment has been very significant. We have Hindus and Indians in Malaysia. We give the right to them, the right of citizenship in Malaysia. We don't want to break or to disturb this relationship with Hindus. And look at what happened in China. The Chinese government's treatment to the Uyghur Muslim in Xinjiang is one of the most severe instances of Islamophobia. the Uyghur has been subjected to mass internment in what the government calls re-education camps, which reports indicate they undergo forced labor, they undergo sterilization, and also torture. And this systematic persecution has been recognized as genocide by various international bodies and also countries. As a small country in this region, we take different approach in countering Islamophobia in this region. We are doing the advocacy from the lower level to the top level. At the society level, we do constant awareness to reach out as many as we can. In Malaysia, last 20 years, the issue on Uyghur is very, very alien to our people. Almost nobody knows who is Uyghur and what's really happening in their region. And now, the situation is better and getting better. We collaborate with Uyghur in diaspora. For example, we got so many information on what's really happening inside the Uyghur region. We publish reports in our language. And currently, the last December, we published a very important report, the Islamophobia in China and the attitudes of the Muslim countries. And we do advocacy in social media as well. We approach human rights organizations, we approach religious councils, and we approach universities, students, and also the academia. And the most important thing is the political advocacy. Because why? In 2021, Human Rights Watch established a very important report. Break their lineage, break their roots. China's crime against humanity, targeting Uyghur and other Turkic Muslims. But in October 2022, United Nations Human Rights Council tabled a motion on violations of human rights committed by the Chinese government. And we failed to witness a very, very historical moment to see that the violation of human rights committed by the China to be debated in the UN Council, Human Rights Council. And we witnessed a very, very, very narrow debate, 19 to 17, and 11 countries abstained, including my countries. That's why the political advocacy is quite important in our country, particularly the Muslim countries. Just imagine, we just need 2 more votes to enable. We witnessed a very historical debate in the United Nations Human Rights Council. This is the first attempt to bring human rights violation committed by the China into the agenda. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your remark. So before to end this session and to give the floor to the room, we have an important message by video. So the conclusion remark of this side event will be given by Her Excellency Mrs. Michelle Taylor from the US Permanent Mission in Geneva.
Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, I want to start by saying how sorry I am to not be in Geneva today to join you in person. I'm incredibly grateful to the Campaign for Uyghurs and CAP for organizing this important and timely event. I want to be clear from the beginning that we condemn in the strongest terms the PRC's policies in Xinjiang, which according to the High Commissioner's assessment on Xinjiang may amount to international crimes, and in particular, crimes against humanity. The US has consistently called for the PRC to cease its human rights abuses in Xinjiang, including during its UPR in January, when we called for the PRC to release all arbitrarily detained individuals in Xinjiang, to cease harassment, surveillance, and threats against individuals abroad and in Xinjiang, to cease discrimination against individuals' culture, language, religion, or belief, and enforceable assimilation policies in Xinjiang, to end forced labor, marriage, birth control, sterilization, abortion, and family separation in Xinjiang, to repeal vague national security, counter-espionage, counter-terrorism, and sedition laws, and permit the UN unhindered and meaningful access to Xinjiang. It was a challenge in the mere 45 seconds I had to deliver our intervention, but we also provided recommendations regarding Tibet, Hong Kong, and the rest of the PRC. As we continue to discuss this important topic, I am thinking about all of those suffering from human rights abuses across China. But today I want to focus more specifically on the plight of Uyghur Muslims. The United States has consistently advocated for the release of Uyghurs who have been detained or disappeared, including Gulshan Abbas, sister of Campaign for Uyghurs Executive Director Rushan Abbas, who is speaking here today. The U.S. is leading the charge in combating the use of Uyghurs in forced labor programs through our Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which requires that companies prove that none of their products are manufactured in whole or in part with Uyghur forced labor. This is very personal to me because I know just how important it is that we combat religious intolerance. I know exactly where it can lead as the daughter and granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. My family experienced firsthand the devastating consequences of hatred, anti-Semitism, and discrimination. Their stories, emblematic of countless others, filled with loss, courage, and for a few escape, have deeply influenced my commitment to human rights and the fight against genocide. Genocides like the one being perpetrated against the Uyghurs. Prior to coming to Geneva, I served on the United States Holocaust Memorial Council. The Holocaust Museum not only tells the story of the Holocaust, but honors its 6 million victims through research to prevent other atrocities, particularly through the work of the Simon Scott Center for the Prevention of Genocide, where I served for many years on the Committee on Conscience. Never again doesn't apply to just Jews. It applies to any group at risk of or experiencing genocide or atrocity. The risk and the rise in anti-Muslim hatred, as seen in the case of the Uyghurs, must be addressed. To that end, the Biden-Harris administration released the United States' first ever national strategy to counter Islamophobia and related forms of bias and discrimination in November of 2023. And on March 15th, 2024, President Biden became the first US president to recognize the International Day to Combat Islamophobia. In his statement, President Biden recognized the violence and hate that Muslims worldwide too often face because of their religious beliefs. He has dedicated his administration to help build a world where people of all faiths and all backgrounds are free to live without fear or persecution. We need partners throughout the multilateral system to address the dire situation of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. We continue to encourage the High Commissioner, OHCHR, and the HRC to address human rights violations against Muslims in Xinjiang and across the PRC, especially considering the PRC's upcoming UPR adoption and the upcoming 2-year anniversary of the High Commissioner's assessment on Xinjiang. We call on the PRC to engage sincerely with UN human rights experts, the Human Rights Commissioner, and the UPR itself to improve the human rights situations in Xinjiang in particular, and for all Muslims across China. Thank you.
This run-up will conclude our side events, and now this is a training session. So, any questions from the assistants? Please decline your name or organization and your delegation.
Sure. My name is Andrew Koo. I'm a lawyer practicing in Malaysia. I just want to make a passing comment that although we are looking at the the dangers of Islamophobia, especially to Uyghurs in this instance. There have been instances where the governments of Malaysia, the governments of Indonesia have actually sent back Uyghurs to China. So how do you account for this, in a sense, double speak of, on the one hand, saying that you want to support the Uyghurs, on the other hand, bowing to the pressure of Big Brother China and abiding by its wishes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Enrico. Actually, my last friend from Malaysia. And regarding the Uyghur here, because in Malaysia we have the interaction between our people and the Uyghur because of the situation in Rohingya, thousands of Uyghurs fled from their country and their destination to Malaysia. But actually, Malaysia is just a transit for them to go to Europe. Actually, this is quite sensitive. Actually, our current position, the government's position, not to send them back to China. I think, of course, we have the certain number of cases. I think maybe 10 years ago, but now this current situation, we do not send them back to China. That's the current situation of the Malaysian government. That's what comes to the.
Thank you. As we have still 2 minutes left, I will just take the last questions, and after we have a coffee and tea, so speaker will be ready to answer to all of the questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Southwide. Who was detained and tortured in the camps by the Chinese authorities in 2017. It was truly horrific. I was waiting for hours on it. I saw the boats taking turns raping female prisoners, and forcing women to take medicines which prevent births. I have experienced firsthand China's destruction of Uyghur, Kazakh, and the Turkic peoples. Our political, civil, and human rights have been crushed for decades. The root cause is the colonization of our lands and China's intention to eliminate us. Time is running out. I want to ask the panel and all states who are here today, how are we going to stop the happening? There is genocide before our eyes, and I am deeply concerned that the UN and states are silent. What action should be taken starting today? I thank you.
Thank you for your question, and there will be another side event to answer it. So I have to conclude the side event, and I will thank everybody from delegation and people that come to our side event. I hope that we give some answer how we can go to observation, action, to question, and engage with those three. So thank you very much.